Jello Biafra sang about 40 years ago, killing the poor. I guess that was long before the orange anoia and the muzzling and just, open capitulation to the New World Order. Why is Canada euthanizing the poor? Since last year, Canadian law in all its majesty has allowed both the rich as well as the poor to kill themselves if they're too poor to continue living with dignity. In fact, the ever-generous Canadian state will even pay for their deaths. What it won't do is pay to allow them to live instead of killing themselves. As with most slippery slopes, it all began with a strongly worded denial that it exists. In 2015, the Supreme Court of Canada reversed 22 years of its own jurisprudence by striking down the country's ban on assisted suicide as unconstitutional, blithely dismissing the fears that the ruling would initiate a descent down a slippery slope into homicide against the vulnerable. The next year, Parliament duly enacted legislation allowing euthanasia, but only for those who suffer from a terminal illness whose natural death was reasonably foreseeable. Despite the government's insistence that assisted suicide is about individual autonomy, it's also kept an eye on those awesome fiscal advantages. It only took 5 years for that proverbial slope to come into view with Bill C-7, a sweeping euthanasia law which repealed that reasonably foreseeable thing I said a couple seconds ago and the requirement that the condition should be terminal. Now, as long as somebody's suffering from an illness or a disability which cannot be relieved under conditions that you consider acceptable, they can take advantage of what is now known euphemistically, as St. Carlin would just be laughing at all of this, medical assistance in dying, MAID for short. Oh, call the maid, ring the bell and call your maid. Soon enough, Canadians from across the country discovered that although they'd otherwise prefer to live, too poor to improve their conditions to a degree which was acceptable. Not coincidentally, Canada has some of the lowest social care spending of any industrialized country. I'm sure Trudeau would deny all that. Palliative care is only accessible to a minority of people, and waiting times in the public healthcare sector can be unbearable to the point where that same Supreme Court, which legalized euthanasia, declared the waiting times at the clinics to be a violation of the right to life. Back in 2005, James, I'm always one of the main things I do, pattern recognition, trying to always recognize and track all these patterns. Man, there's a lot of suicide in the news just from the last couple of weeks. 3 weeks after announcing farewell reunion tour, Naomi Judd of the Judds dies by suicide. 15-year-old student kills himself after bullying over rumor of being unvaccinated. And speaking of vaccination status, James Madison University softball star Lauren Burnett died. The update is, it wasn't any of the weird MAGA jabs. It was suicide. German euthanasia group, this is a good one, not the B. German euthanasia group requires vaccine for assisted suicide. You've got to have your MAGA jabs and Brandon boosters before you can come in and for them to kill you. And inside the Swiss assisted suicide clinic where 2 U.S. sisters paid $11,000 each to die. Talked about that a bit on my morning show. Really interesting part of it, James. They were both, if you can believe this, lifelong medical professionals. A 54-year-old palliative care doctor and a 49-year-old nurse. James, what does it say? And even though now it's like screaming it for 2 years over, what does it say when the supposed health agencies and environmental groups, seemingly at the highest levels, are run by death-obsessed Malthusians?
I think you just answered the question there, actually,
I guess so.
James. Yeah, it answers itself, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly right. So this article is, I'm glad this article was written. I'm glad people brought it to my attention. I got a couple people emailing it to me. I saw someone bring it up in the comment section the other day. So thank you to all the people who get this sort of thing in front of us and bring it to our attention. It is a good article for at least introducing the subject for people who don't know how far along advanced this agenda really is. However, it does, I think, fall short of essentially answering or even posing that question as you posed it there, James, which, yeah, what does it say? That these are, it always goes back to these death-obsessed Malthusians who are just constantly, essentially, trying to get people to die one way or another, whether by actively doing it to them or, hey, guys, why don't you kill yourselves? It'll be the easy way out. It always does come back to that. So I will, again, commend this article not only for at least bringing these facts to the table, but also pointing to such things as that 2005 Supreme Court decision pointing out that, yeah, the wonderful Canadian socialized healthcare system, which we all love so much, why can't we do that in the States? Literally, the Supreme Court saying, yeah, waiting times, these ridiculous waiting times, literally are killing people. It really does deprive people of their right to life. I bet you a lot, not even a lot of Canadians know about that. So there's the link there to the Supreme Court decision. I suggest people go read through that. But yes, it does obviously come back to the very same things that you and I have been talking about for decades now. And so it will not be a surprise to our regular audience. But people who want to know about what this real agenda is really about, I will humbly suggest they go back to episode 396 of the Corbett Report podcast, Bioethics and the New Eugenics, which I think raises exactly this point, talking about all of the breakdown of the millennia-old Hippocratic Oath and all of these things. You swear to abide by these principles and do no harm and all of this. Well, actually, that's outdated. We don't need that anymore. Now it's, maybe we should do harm when it's better for society and all of this. Again, it is a new manifestation of the old lie of eugenics. Also, on I think the bigger picture of this goes back to something I've been talking about quite a bit lately. I mentioned it again on my recent appearance on the Pete Quinona show, which is the breakdown in vitalism. The idea that there is actually something unique and special and definable about organic life, as opposed to inorganic matter. Breaking down that distinction is a goal of the transhuman movement, which is another new form of this old idea of eugenics, which I'll point people back to my What is the Transhuman Agenda from Questions for Corbett 82, where I played that so funny BBC clip about the girl who announces to her parents that I'm trans. No, not transsexual. I'm transhuman. I want to become a robot. I'm going to upload my consciousness, and then they can recycle my body. Recycle? Yeah, they'll kill my body. Who cares? I just want to be in the machine. It always does go back to the death obsession, doesn't it? I wonder if that relates to anything else that's popping in the news right now, James. Anything that's happening in America right now?
I wonder if it does. It is quite the rich tapestry, and again, tearing down things, some that maybe deserve to be teared, but it almost does seem like a sort of clear-cut, just everything essentially being carpet bombed. Maybe the Constitution is trash. They were talking about on The View recently here in the States. James, I do have to ask, all I have in front of me is the archive.is link. Where is that article originally from, the euthanasia?
The Spectator.
The Spectator. Okay, that's no fly-by-night sloppy operation. That's big, respectable outlets there.